So, hello everyone, back again with me, Dante. Today I'm going to talk about some of the books that I have read and I enjoyed but didn't have the time to talk about. And you can consider this as some sort of positive review since I mostly praise these books because I did love them, I did like them, and I wanted to share them with you today. So I'll try to keep them as succinct as possible since I have more than one book to share with you. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the first one, and that is No Country for Old Men. So, No Country for Old Men essentially follows the story of Llewellyn Moss, who stumbles upon a drug deal gone wrong, and there he finds a satchel filled with money. He decides to take the satchel and believes that he can get away with it. Unfortunately, he doesn't know that by doing so, he makes himself a target of a dangerous and psychopathic killer that is Anton Chigurh. So, I would like to talk some of the things that I like from the book. The first one that I would like to talk about is the themes, because this book basically has a lot of themes, from fate, chance, free will, how even though you choose something wrong, you can probably still get away with it because, some sort of luck. But the book also suggests that, but maybe your luck might just not be enough to save you from your fate. It also talks about corruption and greed, and even the title itself, No Country for Old Men, is a theme, and it refers to how the world becomes much more violent than the previous era, and how it slowly becomes more and more foreign to the people, and hence the name No Country for Old Men. But even then, the book also challenges that notion. In addition to the great themes, I love how these themes are conveyed through a great thriller. In my opinion, the story was suspenseful and it was quite violent as well. I think more violent than the movie, in my opinion, and most of the time these themes are shown through our main characters' decisions, actions, and also the consequences that follow. And from these subtle things that they also do. So you can say that this is also a great example of show don't tell. In addition to that, I also like the characters. In my opinion, the book explores more about these characters, so we get a deeper view of each of them because essentially they have more things to do. I believe the movie is kind of like the succinct version of the book. But I'm going to get back to the movie later on. But yeah, so the characters here are explored quite deeply, in my opinion. Especially, in my opinion, you could say Sheriff Tom Bell, because at the beginning of each chapter, he kind of shares his thoughts, his opinions, and his views on certain things. So we get to know him a lot more. As for Llewellyn Moss, he has more things to do, and we can kind of know how he's actually a decent guy. And in my opinion, it's truly shown in this novel than in the movie. As for Anton Chigurh, well, he also does a couple of more things in this book, but he is as enigmatic as is in the movie. But there is something interesting that I finally understood about him, how he truly is a complex character. Because although he definitely represents a physical threat to our main characters, he also challenges our main characters' belief. When Sheriff Tom Bell believes in justice and law, he also, Anton Chigurh, represents chaos. He represents this sort of disorderness? Is that a word? And also when our other main character, Llewellyn Moss, believes in autonomy, freedom, that he can get away with it, Anton also represents himself as some sort of fate that no, you cannot. You have to deal with the consequences of your action, and there is no way you can get away from it. But now let's talk about the movie, because I've mentioned it a couple of times. So in my opinion, the movie and the book are equally as great. In my opinion, the movie is kind of the more succinct version of this novel, like I mentioned earlier, but it doesn't lose the essences of the novel. Yes, the novel explores a lot more and it dives in deeper into some of the themes a lot more, but the movie still retains what I think No Country for Old Men is about. Therefore, I like both of them, I enjoy both of them, and No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy got 5 out of 5 from me. But just a quick note, I would like to mention that while I was reading this novel, I was also using Literature Chart, the website, but I did not use the website version. I used the app version, which apparently has a lot more free contents than the website's version. But the point is, I would like to suggest you to maybe also use that website to get deeper insights into some of the more underlying themes in the novel. Next, I would like to talk about another favorite book of mine that I've finished, and that is this, The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book basically follows the story of Nobody Owens, or simply known as Bot, who lives in a graveyard and raised by ghosts. Although, graveyard can be scary, it's actually the land of the living that is far scarier, because it is there that the man Jack, the man who kills his family, awaits. So at this point, if you follow my Bookstagram account, that is @thatbookish_guy, thank you very much, you know that I like Neil Gaiman's writing. I mostly give his books almost 5 out of 5, so almost perfect. I've read Neverwhere, American Gods, Anansi Boys, and Coraline. Also his 2 short stories, How Marcus de Carabas Got His Coat Back, and The Monarch of the Glen. I mostly enjoyed all of them, so going into this one, I expected another great read, and I did get it. I truly enjoy how this book, although it is, maybe you can kind of slightly say that it's intended for children because of the messages like, don't steal, don't lie, learn your lessons. It is still a dark read and fun and magical one. I mean, if you look at the opening picture, this one version, look. Can you actually, I hope you can see it, wait. Okay, yeah, so this is the opening. Again, this is not necessarily a spoiler. Trust me, this is not. But this man is a killer who kills our main character's family. So this is the first picture of the book and the opening of the first chapter. So as always, he has that dark quality to it. On the surface, it seems like a fun and enjoyable and sort of, heartwarming adventure, but also at the same time, it's dark and gritty. And I always like that aspect about Neil Gaiman. In addition to that, this book surprisingly also tackles some deep subjects like suicide, death, which I think is the most obvious one, especially how it is explored in the 5th chapter, that is Danse Macabre. Again, not going to tell you what happens in that chapter, but basically I think that chapter truly showcases the death theme even more. And in addition to that, it also talks a little bit about redemption. I did not think that I would, get something that deep, especially considering that, because going to this book, I thought that I would just going to get some sort of a fun read that's, kind of intended for children, but no. And I love the way he tackled those topics in a way that is not preachy. So I did truly, feel surprised when I, read those parts. And just like with No Country for Old Men, they're not entirely the same. I also did use lit charts to get more insights to this novel, and surprisingly, I did learn more by using lit chart. Again, I'm not sponsoring, and this video is not sponsored by lit chart, but I just want to share, if it's free and if it can be helpful for people, why not? So in lit charts, I only read the themes and symbols, and it expounds the theme of community, assumption, how we tend to assume people based on his appearance. But by putting our main character in a graveyard, growing up with ghosts, it kind of subverts the expectations of ghosts. So when we're so used to assume that ghosts are scary, but now by presenting ghosts in this way, we can kind of subvert our view for a while and maybe try to think that, hey, maybe they're also good, ghosts. They're not as evil as we think they are. And in addition to that, there is also about guardians and parents. Basically, it talks more about some of the themes that, in my opinion, are not that obvious. Maybe they are, but I just took it for granted. So yeah, if you are a fan of fantasy, dark fantasy, or Neil Gaiman, this book is definitely a great read that you can't miss. The last and final book that I would like to talk with you is Catholicism by Bishop Robert Barron. So basically this book is a nonfiction that talks about Catholicism, and it covers a lot of topics, from God, Trinity, Jesus, Mary, saints, heaven and hell, the apostles. And to be honest with you, reading this book, it truly helped me to clarify certain things and definitely helped me to learn more as a Catholic. Because sometimes I feel like if I go to, like weekly mass or daily mass, I don't learn that much just by joining them, or maybe just from listening from the sermons. I always feel like I need other sources to understand more. So this book truly helped me to open my eye and helped me to understand Catholicism a lot more. And what I also like from this book is the fact that Bishop Robert Barron uses examples from arts, literatures, architectures, his own personal experience, and even language. For an example, like on page 73, he uses the Cologne Cathedral in Germany to gives a little bit of deeper explanation about the divine transcendence and the convincingly immanence of God, because the structure of the building truly represents everything, the creations from the earth, animals, plants, but not only the things we can see, but also the supernatural, such as like devils, angels, saints. So basically the whole creation is presented there in the building. Another example would be the portal of Chartres Cathedral in France, which he uses in this book to explain more about Mother Mary. In addition to that, like I mentioned earlier, he also uses language, and one of the examples of this is from page 254. Here, quoting from the book, St. Augustine famously defines sin as the state of being incurvatus in se, or caved in oneself. And Dante's Satan, Dante Alighieri, the sovereign of a kingdom precisely the size of his own self, splendidly exemplifies the Augustinian definition. And he also uses many other more examples. One of the things that I like about this book is, because there are many things that I like, but maybe if I have to talk one in particular, this could come from the second chapter, and that is about the Beatitudes. Here, Bishop Barron kind of explains that if we look these Beatitudes on the surface, there seems to be 4 Beatitudes that seem positive, and then there are also 4 Beatitudes that seem to be quite, quote-unquote, negative. And the good ones consist of blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. The second one is blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. And the last one is blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So from these Beatitudes, we can kind of feel that they seem to be positive. But now let's turn to those who seem to be a little, quote-unquote, again, negative. The first one is blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The next one is blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. The third one is blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. And the last one is blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So as we can see from these 4, the poor, and then mourn, the meek, the persecuted for the sake of righteousness, seem to imply some sort of negative situations. But it's not necessarily that. But these 4 Beatitudes rather try to help us detach ourselves from worldly things. So it's not necessarily becoming poor in a way that you give up all of the possessions that you have, but rather try to not be attached to worldly things. And the next one, like the blessed are the meek, it's not necessarily, that you should be weak, but again, it's try to detach you from worldly power that can consume you. And then, blessed are they who mourn. So this is not necessarily trying to say that you should undergo terrible things all the time, but rather try to detach yourself so that you don't get too addicted to good feelings. Because again, good feelings can sometimes distract ourselves from our true purpose in life. So again, it's not necessarily try to push aside all the good things, but rather try to control ourselves so we don't get too addicted. And the last one, blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. Bishop Barron explains that it's related to honor, how honor is a good thing. But if we only dedicate ourselves to, being honored almost each and every day, then the only thing that we crave is praises from others, justification from other people. Then we can never truly be happy because we rely on other people so much. Maybe that's one of the things that I can mention that I truly love from this book. So, as the previous two books, I also gave this book a 5 out of 5. So, those are the 3 books that I have read, I loved, but did not have the time to review. I really wanted to talk about them with you because, like I've always said, if there is one thing that is equally as good, if not better than reading, is to share the joy of it, which can also mean sharing some great books. So that's probably the main reason why I would like to share it with you. Hopefully you can find this video enjoyable, and if you do, please like and subscribe this video and also share it. And thank you for staying with me, and I'll see you in the next video.